Welcome to the Ignition News.
Love that. All right, we're kicking into the studio now in eventually. I tried to get a better internet. It didn't work out. There we go. 3, 2. Good morning, everyone. We are 20 days into February. It is the Ignition News, and today is full of absolutely groundbreaking news. So much is happening in America and around the world right now. It was difficult to pick the stories, but the theme today that I wanted to talk about was danger. Danger is the theme. Urgent danger. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, it's very good news for the American resistance. So good morning. We're just getting started. We are broadcasting the show live, of course, on Spotify, Apple Podcast. We are also on Substack now. We're on YouTube, Twitch. I don't know if we're on Twitch. Can someone verify? I don't check in with the Twitchers. Let me just check. Pardon the echo. Oh, yeah. It looks great over there. That's awesome. Got a bunch of messages. Ooh, not all who stream are as dedicated as you. Okay. Look at that. We just got an invite to start making money on Twitch. That's great. I love that. We'll have to check that out. Cool. Every little dollar helps. We appreciate that. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook sometimes, but not always because it's toxic over there. We love that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ignition News. There is so much to talk about today. Obviously, you've been checking in on the headlines. If you're new to the show, I want to let you know that we cover 4 to 5 or maybe 6 stories every day that are really central to the fight against fascism in America to keep you updated without that amygdala hijack, Arson Parsnip or whatever his name is. I forget. The guy whose dad is a Russian spy, that guy. Anyways, good morning. Welcome to the Ignition News. Today is February 20th. Big stories today. The president told you that tariffs were protection. They told you that voter fraud investigations are about your right to vote. They told you that the dollar store was your friend. And then they told you a $10 billion slush fund was about peace. They lied on every single one of those things. And today's Ignition News is about one thing: power. Power treating you, the taxpayer, the voter, the American citizen, like a mark to be conned. We've got just 4 stories today, but they link together quite well. So grab a seat. Welcome to the Ignition News. It's really good to have you. If you're watching on TikTok, please do tap that screen, share it out with your friends. And let's get into it. Number 1 story today, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is issued a huge smackdown. Obviously, this is going to be the biggest story of the day. The implications and repercussions of this are going to cascade for quite some time. This morning, the Supreme Court of the United States, in a 6-3 decision, struck down the tariffs, the emergency tariffs by the President of the United States, ruling them as flatly illegal. Let that just sink in for 1 minute. These tariffs have essentially become the number 1 economic weapon that the president uses both domestically and internationally. He's utilized them as an emergency power. The ones, of course, he suggested might eventually replace income tax. They are illegal, unconstitutional. And it is a massive power grab that the president attempted to pull, but in fact, the Supreme Court has wrestled it back. So what happened, of course, is the president used this 1977 law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. He used that to impose tariffs on basically every single country, which obviously caused a lot of global international disruption. Just the president himself deciding who, when, and where he would apply these tariffs. The Supreme Court today said no. No, Mr. President, you cannot do that. In his majority opinion, Justice Roberts wrote the following, and I'll make sure I quote this. The IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. And that before Trump, no president in this nearly 50-year history of the law has ever tried to use it this way. Roberts said the president must point to clear congressional authorization to justify his extraordinary assertion of the power to impose tariffs. He cannot. Now, why this is important. This was a 6-3 ruling, and we'll get into more on this tariffs conversation. But what I want to point out here is that we have three anti-American, fundamentally anti-constitutionalist Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court continues to behave in this way, we can only imagine one possible outcome: that the United States Supreme Court is in fact illegitimate. The three dissenting opinions, perhaps the most dangerous people sitting on the bench right now. Who do you think they are? Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh. The three most dangerous people wearing black robes in this entire country right now. Fundamentally anti-American. Now, here's where it gets personal. As of last December, the government has collected over $130 billion in tariff revenue under the IEEPA alone. Where does this money come from? It comes from you. It comes from you and your family. We have been under the grasp, the reach, and the power of an illegal order from the President of the United States since April. And we have no recompense. We will be not there. Just think about that for a minute. The president illegally fined you a tax in the form of a tariff. It has been illegal since day one. He illegally levied a tax on you. He should be impeached for this. There's only one possible outcome. The president of the United States levied an illegal tax on the American people. Now, there's no mechanism to get that money back to you or back to the people who paid those tariffs. And there's not even any indication that a lot of this money hasn't already been spent, for example, funding ICE. The fact of the matter is the tariffs are illegal and they need to be refunded. Now, what's also interesting about this, by the way, is that there were a lot of insiders in the Trump administration who were leveraging a financial mechanism. And you want to know what they were doing? They were selling advances on tariff refunds. So let us say that you were a company and you paid $100,000 in tariffs. There were companies set up by a lot of people close to the administration and just financial experts in general who were saying, okay, we will pay you now $30,000 for your $100,000 tariff. And if you're a company, you're struggling to pay bills, you're trying to make ends meet, you're trying to make payroll, you need to order another import, and you've got no money now, or you got $30,000 from a mysterious financial company that says, I'll buy your $100,000 tariffs right now for $30,000. Guess what? Those people are going to get $100,000 back from the federal government, if in fact there is a way to do that. So once again, we've seen this administration through its close connections, whether that's insider trading, illegal dealing, shady crypto, engineering mechanisms of using the state to make people richer. Perhaps this was all a long con after all, or perhaps it's just bad government. This is what it looks like to be abused by an authoritarian president. There is no question. The president of the United States illegally levied a tax in the form of an import tariff, which he had no authority to do, and he must be impeached. Now, of course, add that to the pile of things that this president must be impeached for, but this is indeed a misdemeanor. Welcome to the Ignition News, everyone. Good morning. It's great to have you. I know someone says I'm late to the show. I know we're gonna get working on having a more consistent time for the show. So that will help. But if you're new to the show, I do want to ask you to go ahead and follow along. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe. Click that subscribe button. It does help. We're growing over on Spotify like a weed. That's an inside joke. And briefly, I just want to take a little bit of a moment to let you know that our show is brought to you by Ignite, fighting fascism in the age of its rise. Ignite is our signature podcast. If you're wondering, how do I push back against authoritarianism? What do I do? How do I get involved in my local politics? How can I protect my elections? How can I fix the pothole in front of my yard? Well, we've made a podcast just for that. 14 episodes, 4 bonus episodes. And yes, there's more coming for you to learn how to get involved. Ignite is one of my passion projects of my entire life. And it wouldn't be possible without Rebel Radio, the channel that you're listening to this now. And of course, our amazing crew, the moderators who keep this space productive. So yeah, go download Ignite. It's totally free. It's not something you have to buy. It's not something you have to pay for. It's just a guide for you to kick fascism right in the ass. So go do it. Ignite, fighting fascism in the age of its rise. Sorry, I had to take a note. Good morning, everyone. Let's get on to the next story. I got distracted by this illegal president. Welcome, everyone. Sorry, I got distracted by my trailer that I rambled off in my head. I do want to let you know. Eventually, we're moving space. I'm really excited. I'm excited to show you the space that we're moving into. But let's get into the next story. We have, in fact, found election fraud. Yes, we found election fraud from the 2024 election. Good luck, TikTok. The state of Georgia has just found election fraud. The state of Georgia Election Board voted this week to issue a formal letter of reprimand to Elon Musk's America PAC. That's the super PAC that the richest man in the world used to spend over $100 million getting Trump elected in 2024. I actually think it was closer to $200 million. Here's what they found. In the lead up to the 2024 election, Musk's America PAC sent out partially pre-filled absentee ballot applications to voters across multiple Georgia counties. The investigation was triggered by reports from residents who received these applications with information already filled in, which is a violation of Georgia election law. The state's election board chairman confirmed the investigation and the resulting reprimand. So let's just hold up a mirror for a section. This administration, this muskrat, who have been screaming about voter fraud for literally a decade, literally participated in voter fraud in the state of Georgia. They conducted an illegal voter influence scheme by sending pre-filled out ballots, absentee ballots, all while screaming about voter fraud. Now, Elon Musk himself has gotten his dirty little mitts inside of the federal government, stealing and getting all of your data, some of the most sensitive data that exists about you, by the way. You want to talk about voter integrity? It's right there, right in front of you. The richest man in the world interfered with the Georgia elections. And you know why? Because Georgia said so. Now, there's no actual voter fraud happening in the way that this president or Elon Musk or these billionaires want us to believe. But now we know that Elon Musk has been reprimanded in Georgia. Now, it's not enough. It's not even going to be a dust hair mouse fart of a slap on the wrist for this billionaire. But they weaponize fear about the election system that does not exist. And then they use their massive influence, their massive social media presence, and of course their money to actually influence the election. So what do you do with this information? We always like to give you solutions, right? When someone talks about the SAVE Act or voter fraud or the election being rigged, remind them that the person rigging the election was Elon Musk. And that's aside from obviously what happened in the 2024 election that you just can't talk about. But anyways, welcome everybody to the Ignition News. What is the consequence of all of this? What is the consequence of this horrible leadership? Good morning, TikTok. Please do click that heart, send it out, tap the screen. I appreciate it. I must have missed some comment over there. Anyways, let's take a breath. What is the consequence of all this terrible government? Well, let me tell you about it. The checkout line. Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree is obviously a store that built its entire brand and customer base on the promise of cheap goods, cheap things. My son loves Dollar Tree, of course. He just bought himself a little humidifier that he's making into a project. I got to show it to you when it's done. But Dollar Tree is quietly repositioning itself. According to analysis by Bloomberg, half of all Dollar Tree locations opened since 2019 are now opening in more affluent zip codes. Half. The company now says 60% of its new customers have household incomes above $100,000. So it's not a dollar store anymore. It's a discount store for people who are choosing to be frugal, right? Dollar Tree used to be $1 per item. We know that, obviously. Today, prices run from $1.25 to over $5. Their 9,000th location opened just blocks from a Louis Vuitton store. Why am I telling you this? Dollar Tree chasing wealthy customers is a direct market response to the economic destruction that is happening in the working class. When people who make over $100,000 a year have to shop at Dollar Tree, It means the cost of living has risen so dramatically, so exponentially, that even middle-income families are feeling the squeeze of inflation. The tariffs that we talked about, yes. Stagnant wages, the cost of housing, yes. But Dollar Tree itself fundamentally understands that it cannot survive on its old customer base anymore, so now it has to start luring in rich people. It literally put a store next to a Louis Vuitton. But it also means that that same customer that might not have shopped at Dollar Tree before is now essentially forced into doing that. And I've said many times, as I think you understand, a family of four in America cannot live on $100,000. $100,000, six figures, used to be an economic milestone for a family or a person to cross, but you can't survive in any major city, any regular city. With the cost of housing, the cost of living, taxes, insurance, inflation, food, groceries, all of these things. And now more and more of Dollar Tree's customers are making more than $100,000 a year. And of course, what Dollar Tree is doing is it's not Dollar Tree anymore, right? It's $5.50 Tree now. If you needed a better indication of inflation and how it's gotten out of control, there it is. That's right, dog. My live got a warning again, by the way. I just got there must be some fragile little bitch in the comments. We see you. They're so sensitive. They're so sensitive. Go ahead, do it again. I don't give a shit. We're on fucking 12 things right now. You fragile little bitch. Anyways, last segment. The Board of Peace. If you were mad now, you better start tapping. The Board of Peace. We had our first Board of Peace meeting, obviously, Trump's extortion racket. Yesterday, he stood at the inaugural meeting of what he calls his Board of Peace, and he announced that the United States would contribute $10 billion to the Board of Peace. This fund is apparently entirely controlled by the president, the one that he chairs, the Board of Peace. So the United States, without congressional authorization, is supposed to give $10 billion to the president's slush fund. The Board of Peace was initially pitched as an international body to oversee economic reconstruction in Gaza. But they've been using it as this sort of expansive extortion ring. Who showed up to join the Board of Peace? Israel, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Hungary, the UAE, Turkey, El Salvador. All of these countries have significant human rights issues. The people who declined? The fucking Vatican, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Norway, Ukraine, Italy, Poland, New Zealand. Basically, our entire former allied construction. Of course, Vladimir Putin got invited. And now the president wants to hand over $10 billion. We're the bad guys now. We're the bad guys. And they're using your money to do it. So let's bring this all to a close. What does this all mean? The Supreme Court said tariffs were illegal. That's a win. Massive win. The prices you paid are still gone from your wallet, of course. The election board found that Elon Musk's election PAC violated the state law. That is also accountability. Dollar Tree's top expansion and executives are saying that they have to go into richer and richer neighborhoods to survive. There's no amount of spin from the White House that's going to tell us anything other than this president is failing to deliver on his core promise. And today, the president pledged your money, $10 billion of it, without Congress to going to his Board of Peace. Peace. I got to say it right. I'm sorry. So what do you do with all of this information? Well, you stay informed. You stay loud, and you make sure the people around you know what is actually happening. And I think it's so funny that people want to shut down the truth. I think it's so funny that the truth is so devastating to these people that they have to bury their head in the sand, in spite of the fact that it is against their best interest. They would rather pay more money. They would rather live worse. They would rather suffer. They would rather live terrible, lonely lives than just admit that there are a bunch of people like us, who actually want to make their life better, even though they behave the way that they behave. And I think that's my closing thought for you today. In all of this darkness, in all of this corruption, all of this scandal, Over the long course of history, the good people do win. And even on days when it feels like we're not making progress, even on days when it feels like we're never going to get out of this, well, you still have the community that you've built, the community that we've built, the actions that you've taken. And at the end of the day, whatever force you believe reconciles and checks the tick marks of who is good, who did what. No matter what they say, you know that you have been adding check marks, check marks, check marks, check marks to your column, your balance, your scale. And it is not my place to tell you anything spiritual, religious, or otherwise. But I can tell you that we are essentially on a semi-wet rock floating around this infinitely large universe. We're essentially bacteria on a slightly wet rock hurtling around a nuclear ball of fire, and we're all cascading through the universe at immeasurably fast speeds. And whether one piece of that bacteria decides to be toxic or one piece of that bacteria decides to grow into something beautiful, you can't control. But the good stuff tends to grow in the light. Stick with me. This metaphor is a stretch, but I think it means something. We are so infinitesimally small on the grand scale of the universe, regardless of your spiritual beliefs. It's just true. We are so incredibly small in the grand picture of everything happening, not only in this town, this place, this country, this planet, this solar system, this universe. But no matter how big the scale of your deeds is compared to the massive scale of the universe, you can sleep well, knowing that each little act of contribution, each act of positivity, each act of good is adding one more check mark, one more little piece of weight, one more balance towards that justice. We will prevail. There's no question in my mind. It may not be today. It may not be in 5 years. It may not be in 50 years. But if it is in 500 years, a person sitting down, analyzing the weight of history then, cannot do it without your contributions today. They cannot see that positive return without each small act, without each shovel out of this that you take every single day. If no one had stood up to the president, if no one had sued him over his illegal tariffs, he wouldn't have been put back into his place. If no one in Georgia had complained that they got a filled out ballot from a disgusting muskrat, then they wouldn't have found that he committed election interference. If no one is willing to stand up to the president to steal your money for his slush fund, then he will do that. And if no one is courageous enough to say now even wealthy people have to shop at Dollar Tree and we deserve better, then the fact of the matter is Dollar Tree is just going to have to find wealthier and wealthier customers as we are pushed farther towards the cliff. And we are being pushed towards the cliff. So remember that. It's February 20th. I don't know about you, but I feel a lot of hope today. That's the show, everybody. Have a great day. Well, everybody, have a wonderful day and live.